Hello and welcome to our guide for Kor'kron Dark Shaman, the 7th boss in the Siege of Orgrimmar. During this encounter, you will face two bosses who share health and who are both active at the same time, Earthbreaker Harom and Wavebinder Kardris. At the start of the fight, you also have to fight two adds. They have low health compared to the bosses and their only abilities are a frontal cone attack and a stacking bleed effect. Each add has both of these abilities. We advise you to start the fight by killing these two adds first. They are not very strong, but they can be an annoying distraction. Just face them away from the raid and kill them. Now let's look at the bosses. Each boss starts out with a basic ability and then they each gain a new ability when they reach 85, 65 and 50% health, which they retain until the end of the fight. Harom's basic ability is Frost Storm Strike. This is a damaging attack used against Harom's tank that also stacks a debuff which causes the ability to do more damage to that player. Just perform a tank switch to handle it. Kardris' basic ability is Frost Storm Bolt. This is a single target uninterruptible nuke cast on Kardris' tank that deals a lot of frost damage. You will just need to make sure that the tank has enough health to survive these casts. Now let's look at the abilities that the bosses gain throughout the fight and how to handle them. At 85% health, Harom gains Toxic Mist. This is an undispellable 30-second nature damage dot that is cast on random raid members. With each tick, the dot stacks a debuff on the target, causing them to take 10% increased nature damage. This debuff wears off when the dot does, and the implication is that Toxic Mist will deal increasing damage to its target up until it expires, so your healers will need to take that into account. Kardris' 85% health ability is Toxic Storm. This creates a moving cloud that deals damage to any players who are under it. In addition to this, the cloud regularly creates moving toxic tornadoes, which knock back any players they touch and damage them. Each cloud lasts 90 seconds and the ability is cast every 30 seconds, so this will limit your space as the fight goes on. While you won't be literally out of space, towards the end you may find it pretty difficult to avoid the other abilities due to the many clouds and tornadoes. To deal with this ability, everyone will just have to make sure that they aren't under any clouds and that they avoid the tornadoes. At 65% health, Harom gains Foul Stream. The boss targets a random raid member and then, a few seconds later, places a stream of poison on the ground at the player's location. This ground effect persists for a few seconds, dealing high nature damage every second to anyone standing there. The targeted player is marked with a green arrow for a few seconds before the ground effect appears, allowing you to avoid the subsequent effect. Ideally, players who are targeted by this should move out of the raid, but everyone should be careful anyway. Kardris gains Foul Geyser at 65% health. Every 30 seconds, Kardris channels the spell for 8 seconds, dealing damage to everyone around him every second and summoning an add called Foul Slime with each tick. These adds melee and they also have a very damaging aura that ticks in a 3-yard area around them each second. There are multiple ways to handle this ability, but we advise you to focus on the adds and kill them immediately as they spawn if you can manage to survive the damage. Melee players should move out temporarily if they don't have strong damage reduction cooldowns. Alternatively, you could try having a tank kite them around until they are killed, but this is going to be harder to pull off. At 50% health, Harom gains Ashen Wall. He summons a wall of stationary elementals near his location. These adds cannot be attacked or killed, and they persist until the end of the fight, dealing very high damage to any players who are in their melee range. Basically, you just want to move the bosses away from these walls as soon as they spawn, and everyone should make sure not to be near them. Kardris gains Falling Ash at 50% health. This ability marks a large area on the ground with a red circle. 15 seconds later, a fiery projectile lands in the area, dealing lethal damage to anyone inside it and also dealing some raid-wide damage. You need to make sure that no one is standing inside the circle and your healers should use a damage reduction cooldown for the raid-wide damage. Finally, at 25% health, the bosses cast Bloodlust on themselves, gaining a 25% increase in damage done and haste until the end of the fight. You should always tank the bosses close together so that players can easily cleave them. Ideally, you should tank them along the outer edges of the fighting area, moving them slightly whenever an Ashen Wall or Falling Ash is cast near them, while the rest of the raid stays in the center. Other than this, just avoid all the abilities while doing as much DPS as you can to the bosses. We advise you to use Heroism or Bloodlust at the pull for maximum efficiency, but you could also delay it until the bosses reach 25% health if you prefer. Before you pull the bosses, you should clear all the trash mobs located in every building around the fighting area, because it is very easy to pull them accidentally during the fight. For a more detailed and constantly updated written version of this guide, go to the link in the description. Thank you for watching.